Hello and welcome to Global Dialogue. I'm Shireen Bhan and we're in conversation with the head of global safety at Meta. India is, of course, Meta's largest market in terms of its user base, and to talk about what the India roadmap looks like from a safety perspective and what the global trends are, joining me is Antigone Davis. Antigone, thanks so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. Appreciate your time. Let me start by talking to you about Digital Suraksha, which is the campaign that Meta is working on with the Indian government. What are you hoping to achieve at the end of this?
Well, one of the things that we are definitely hoping to achieve is to make people more aware of the tools that we have, particularly in context of youth safety. We have over 30 tools that we've launched. We want to make sure that people are aware of them and using them. And we actually heard from the minister today about a push for us to do this more in the states throughout India. And we will take that feedback back.
And, if you are going to be doing this in India and relevant to an Indian audience, I would imagine that it will have to be in different languages, because that is how you will get the message across. So what's the plan on that front?
Yeah, so to give you an idea of our commitment to ensuring that we're bringing our safety tools across the languages that are spoken in India, we have over 20 different languages that are covered by our content moderators. These are the moderators that ensure that we're enforcing our policies properly. Our family center, which is launched here in India, has 10 different languages. So we're very committed to ensuring, Indian languages that is, to ensuring that we have provided the right safety languages, languages across all the safety, safety across all the languages.
In terms of making the tools and the solutions more contextual and relevant to the audiences that you are catering to, from an India perspective, given the demographic, given what you are seeing in terms of trends of online abuse, etc., is there anything specific that has been done to customize the tools for an Indian audience?
Well, let me talk to you for 1 minute about the way in which we ensure that we're customizing. We have partners throughout India that we work with, NGOs, so the Rati Foundation, the Center for Social Research, Red Dot Foundation, that are working with us to ensure that our whatever guides, whatever resources, whatever tools we're building, whatever policies we have are informed by the local context. There are also things that we launch India first. So I'm going to tell you one that's not safety specific and then one that is safety specific. Sure. Reels, which I'm sure everybody in India knows, was launched in India first. Safety-wise, we have a big campaign called Report, Don't Share. It's in relation to child sexual exploitation material. We launched that first in India. We worked with Indian organizations to develop the content to make sure that it had the right context, and brought it to India first.
Was there a reason why you brought it to India first?
I think we have a large number of users in India. We have there are a large number of young users in India, and we wanted to be sure that we were meeting the needs of the country. There are other things that we've done that have been India first on the safety front as well. For example, in terms of women's safety, we have something that's where you can lock your profile, because we heard that there were issues around photo safety for women in India, and so we developed a specific tool and launched it here in India.
Speaking of how the experience and the learnings from India have helped you customize some of these solutions, let's talk about WhatsApp, because that's ubiquitous here in India and also has become a large part of the problem, especially when we talk about the dissemination of fake news, misinformation, and so on and so forth. And many measures or steps have been taken by Meta to try and curb that. But, do you believe that you need to do more? And what is the learning now after what you've done?
Well, what I would say about safety generally is that we always feel like we want to do more. In other words, the way in which people are using technology is constantly evolving, and the way in which we're deploying safety is constantly evolving. And I don't think this is an area where you would ever see us sort of stop and say, that's it, we're done, we're finished. It's always changing. It's an adversarial space, and so we're committed to always improving. You talked about misinformation, for example, with WhatsApp. One of the things that we did was to set forwarding limits on content to ensure that we could slow down that any kind of spread of misinformation. That's the kind of learning, and oftentimes tested here in India to ensure that we're getting it correctly.
And I think that has made a difference in terms of just being able to slow down the virality. But on the back to the feedback that you are getting, and I know that regulators around the world are in dialogue and conversation with tech companies like you, where do you feel you need to prioritize action? Where is the immediacy, the urgency today in being able to curb misinformation?
Well, I would actually take one step back and say, if you ask me what do I think the urgency is today, I think the urgency today is to try to develop a set of standards for industry broadly. So, right now in India, people are having active conversations around regulation. We welcome that. Our interests are aligned with policymakers when it comes to safety. We are in need of a set of standards that are clear and concise for all of industry, that ensure that we all are working with the same understanding of what is expected of us. And so you'll see that we already are collaborating deeply with policymakers, and will continue to do so that we can get to that place.
And you're also collaborating with your peers, because there are reports suggesting that there is likely to be an alliance of sort of Google, Meta and others coming together, and they have proposed, at least to the Indian government, for setting up a sort of self-regulatory body, a self-certification body, a network of fact-checkers, if you, for the lack of a better word. What's the progress on that, and is there alignment between the tech world on what the standard should be or what the code should be?
So I think you're speaking about the Misinformation Combat Alliance. That's not an area of my expertise, but what I can speak to is broadly about industry coming together. So I do think that we're seeing more and more areas where industry is coming together. So I don't know how familiar you are with something called GIFCT. This is a global forum to counter terrorism. That was really generated with governments as well, and industry coming together to come up with a way together to fight terrorism content on platforms. Another area is something called the Tech Coalition. So this is an industry alliance across Google, Microsoft, Meta, and other Snap and other companies to fight child exploitation, to set up both a joint effort in terms of the technology that we're developing, in terms of the programming that we're developing, in terms of the resources that we're developing, to ensure that we're doing this industry-wide, because almost all of these problems are industry-wide problems. They're never, it's not generally something you see on only one platform.
No, you're absolutely right. This is an industry-wide issue. But you also talked about the need for standards that the industry has clarity on, but the need for harmonization across the world, and that I think is posing to be a challenge, because India is looking at its own regulation, different jurisdictions are looking at their own regulations. How much of that is a challenge for a company like yours, given the fact that you're operating across so many different jurisdictions today?
Well, as someone who used to work for a regulator, I very much understand every regulator's desire to sort of set the rules and to know within the context of their country what they think is needed. I also recognize the need for global standards and some uniformity, because we are operating at a global scale. But interestingly, I think we're starting to see some of that harmonization, in the sense that we see many members of many regulators around the world focusing on the same issues.
Right.
So I'll give an example.
But their approach to that might be different.
They might be different, but through conversation, you get some beginning of uniformity, and I would urge them to go in that direction. But I'll give one example. So let's take age verification. Right. This is something that's coming up quite a lot around the world. People are trying to figure out, how do we ensure that industry is providing age-appropriate experiences, and age verification, or understanding the age of the user, is important for providing age-appropriate experiences. Now, we generally hear oftentimes from regulators, it doesn't really matter where, a push for using ID verification, until they start to think about and hear the complications of that. It is complicated, because not everybody has an ID. You're going to cut off access. Also, it means that we will, as an industry, will be collecting more information than you might want to give to us. It's not just the age at that point. Generally, IDs carry a lot more information. That said, that could be one potential solution. But what we're starting to see is that policymakers around the world are honing in on multiple options. So instead of saying you just have to verify by ID, maybe there are other ways in which you can identify somebody's age, maybe signals on the platform, or maybe technology that uses the face to understand what somebody's age is. These are different solutions that are developing, and if we can work globally, we can actually open up the door for multiple solutions and then allow those solutions to be offered around the globe and satisfy the need of understandable need and concern policymakers have with that particular issue.
You know, you talked about verification. So let me address the issue of the rollout as far as the verified plan is concerned. And we've seen this back and forth with Twitter, but that's a different story altogether. I want to understand what the rollout for you so far has been like, and especially as you pilot this now in the US, and what the plan is for India, and also the implications of that. Because if you were to be able to just pay for a blue tick or a blue badge or whatever the case may be, how do you then ensure that it's not just an identity issue, but the verification process was not just about the blue tick, it was about people, you assume that this was somebody in a position of authority, in a position of power, in a position of decision making, and so on and so forth. How do you ensure that it is not up for misuse?
Well, I think there's a reason that use the word pilot. I think that's important. I think there's a reason that it is a pilot. Almost everything that we do, we test first. We try to roll it out in a controlled or smaller space to understand it so that we can answer those very questions that you have. How are we going to ensure that it works as designed? How are we going to ensure that when you're talking about verification, we're able to do that in an accurate way and then provide the services that come with that verification? And so this is why it is really at a pilot stage now. And it'll be interesting to see what we learn and how we go from there.
And what's been the experience so far?
Well, I think it's really too early for me to say what's been so far, but we'll see soon. It's very new.
Okay. Since we are talking about some of the tools that you've brought in, especially to curb misinformation, I want to talk about the AI model that you put in place with Sphere and what the learnings are from that, and whether you believe that, in this world of generative AI, etc., this is going to be the route forward in being able to address some of these issues.
Well, we've long used AI. I mean, it's interesting to hear now the public conversation around AI, and I think it's particularly around because of the generative AI and particularly around chat. But we've long used AI in the context of safety. So, for example, we have tools in the background that enable us to keep unconnected adults from messaging minors. We also use this AI to identify what we would think of as potentially suspicious accounts and prevent those suspicious accounts from connecting with minors. Those suspicious accounts, that's all AI and signals that are used to develop and identify what is a suspicious account. That account may not violate our policies, we may not have an indication they're violating our policies, but based on signals or behaviors of those accounts, we can identify them as suspicious, and we can prevent them from engaging with a minor or prevent us from sharing minors, offering up minors and people you may know to those accounts. So this is a kind of AI that we've been using for a really long time in the context of safety.
Bullion delivery, now from Base Delivery Center to your doorstep. For details, write to us on info@mcxindia.com.
Did you know installing solar power at your premises is now more affordable than ever before? Tata Power pioneers innovative, customized financing and insurance solutions through single window service. With the largest network of financing partners, including 20+ public sector banks, NBFCs and private banks. Low down payments, low interest rates, collateral-free options and flexible tenor options. Tata Power helps curate the best fit financing solution for you with the quickest turnaround time. Avail easy documentation, doorstep service and end-to-end solutions from application to installation. Call us or visit our website, and Tata Power's solar roof experts will help you go solar seamlessly. Tata Power. Sustainable is attainable. An initiative by News 18 Network.
गुणवत्ता की बात चली है, एक नई शुरुआत मिली है, परिवर्तन को गले लगाकर अपनाएंगे ज़ड। चलो देश का रूप निखारें, पर्यावरण को हम ही संवारें, प्रदूषण से बचाने को अपनाएंगे ज़ड।
Register with Ministry of MSME's Set Certification Scheme today.
Making the future truly forward and charting a path towards gender parity.
Women step out of the workforce at very predictable points. So they have these major life transitions, and it's almost like you can map it out, and when that hits, they're likely to take a step back from career. The question then becomes, what is it that us in positions of authority and power and influence are doing to ensure that it's just a step back? Because when women come back into the workforce, they should have an encouraging environment.
A mega initiative to make gender parity an attainable reality. HSBC presents CNBC-TV18 Future Female Forward, the Women's Collective.
Presented by HSBC.
Co-presented by HCL Tech.
Knowledge partner Deloitte. Industry partner Vicky. Associate partner Reliance Industries Limited.
You know, it is election season, or we're heading into election season, and this has of course been a big challenge for platforms like Meta. In light of the learnings of the past, is there anything that we will see you do different this time around?
We have a whole host of programming and work that we do around elections to ensure integrity and safety during those time periods. In particular, I don't work on this specifically, but in particular my team does work on the safety of women public figures during elections, and we have special programming and training that we do to ensure that women public figures are able and candidates are able to maintain their safety during the course of an election.
You talked about online safety for women, and I know that as part of the Digital Suraksha campaign, you're also working with law enforcement in India particularly. Again, is there anything specific that you see here in India with respect to the kind of reactions that we see specifically for women, and how Meta, for instance, has been able to deal with some of that?
Well, I'm actually going to talk to you one of the things that I've seen in India, and both in my last visit and in this visit, that I think is extraordinarily exciting and promising, and that is the development of the creator community. Mm-hmm. And they're not only engaging in terms of creating great content for people to see and to be engaged with, but they're really involved in a lot of the safety work that we do, whether that's through promoting anti-bullying campaigns, or we had a particular effort with a Bollywood creator and star in relation to child safety and child exploitation. And we see this opportunity and real creativity in India around these kinds of issues.
As you look at the way that we're seeing these platforms grow and the kind of reach that you enjoy, what are the specific challenges that you believe that you need to deal with today in the context of the kind of sort of messaging that you want to send out, but also the way that the platform's being used by different constituencies in being able to, at this point in time, for instance, in India, you're not liable for the content that's posted by people on the platform, but that could change if the new Digital Act comes into play. So how are you gearing yourself up from a regulatory perspective in light of the proposed changes?
Well, I think, we have long felt that it was important for industry standards to be developed. We haven't waited for them. We've tried to develop tools and safety and policies to ensure that we are providing a safe experience, regardless of where the legislation goes. We're also really trying to co-design those safety efforts with our users. So that's in the context of creators, it's in the context of the people who use our platform. And I feel confident that we share the same goals as policymakers. We want people to feel safe on our platform. People won't engage, people won't use our platform or use our apps if they don't feel safe. And so this is really a matter of kind of coming together now to align on the approach, and I think we'll get there.
But there is also this sort of challenge between the anonymity that some people want to continue to enjoy on platforms and the need for verification and identification. So as a platform, how much of a burden is that at this point in time to walk that fine line and walk that balance?
Well, I think we've been able to do it pretty well. I mean, on our platforms, there's information that we can know in the background about a user that they share with us, and then there is, I don't know that we really have the kind of anonymity that people typically associate with parts of the internet. We try to encourage people to have an authentic experience and to behave authentically on our platform. We do a lot in the background to identify people who are not engaging authentically, who are either impersonating or have fake accounts, and so that's how we try to control that area and try to ensure that we have the authentic experience where you know who it is that you're engaging with.
Mm-hmm. One, of course, is the issue of regulators or governments telling you to take something down, and there have been takedown requests and we've seen that number go up considerably. But preemptive action, give me an anecdote of how Meta is responding to this preemptively, responding to what you may see as misinformation, fake news, bullying, online harassment, for instance.
Well, this goes back actually to when you were talking about AI. So we have policies. You're not allowed to violate our policies. They're open and stated on our platform, and they cover exactly the content that you're talking about: bullying content, hate speech, misinformation, and other types of content. And we then use AI that can identify that content before and move it before people report it to us. We have a transparency report because it's important for people to know that if we say that we're taking down this content, that they understand what we're taking down and how much of it we're taking down and how effective we are. And to give you an example, we have content, let's say bullying and harassment content, or hate speech content, or child exploitation content for that matter. We have a transparency report that shows how much content we take down in that particular area, as well as the percentage of it that we get before it's been reported to us. And across most of the areas that we report on, we're 90% of the time or more catching that content before it's reported to us.
And are you seeing that in India it's different, where you are seeing a higher percentage of takedown requests coming in to you?
I don't know the number of takedown requests in comparison to other countries. I apologize for not knowing that. But we also, on the context of takedown requests, is slightly different than what I was talking about. We have transparency around that as well, so that people are made aware of the takedown requests that we're getting, so that they understand what is the government asking us to take down, and what are we doing in response to that.
India is not just your largest user market, it's also an important strategic market for you from, as you pointed out, an incubation perspective, where you're incubating ideas and also testing some of your new solutions. So what's on the anvil at this point in time? You talked about Reels, and you talked about some of the other solutions that you tested here in the Indian market. What are you prioritizing at this point?
Well, I think we're quite focused on the creator community. India has an incredibly active creator community, and we've seen them use Reels to great effect. I mentioned to you that I was here earlier it's not earlier in this year, it was last year, but it was within the last 12 months I've been here. Earlier, and when I was here, I sat down and had a conversation with creators, and one of the things that came across from creators was that they needed some additional tools. They focused a lot at the time on being able to balance their life as a creator with some of their life that was outside of the work that they were doing as a creator, and finding a way to be able to have that time balance. And since that time, from when I came into now, we have a new tool called the scheduling tool. that was developed in response to that kind of feedback that we had gotten from creators. So we do look to India first in this area.
And as you pointed out, this is not your first visit to India, it's your 6th visit. How have you seen this market change? You talked about the creator economy and it's grown significantly. But what are some of the other insights over the last 6 visits that you've done here in India that has, to your mind, given you a sense of how much things have changed here?
Well, one of the things that I've seen that I'm really excited about on a personal level is growth in the number of active women on our platform and the activity there. I remember when I first came to India, there was a lot of conversation from the women that I was meeting with around safety. And not that women's safety isn't an issue, it's always an issue. It's still an issue now. But at the time, that seemed to be impacting women's interests in being on our platform. That seems to have really changed. And I met with the minister earlier today, and I had heard her say last night on the news, 400 million women are active, fiscally active contributing members of India's economy. And a lot of that is through small businesses, and our platform is playing a role in that, in women being able to develop their small businesses and bring them forward, and women being a part of the creator community. So that, to me, is one of the most exciting things that I've seen, is the extraordinary activity of women on our platform here in India.
Well, that's good to hear, and it's good to know that more women are actively participating in the economy using digital technology as well. You've had quite the India visit this time around, haven't you?
I have.
Courtesy lost baggage.
Courtesy lost baggage, but you know what?
But you've experienced the Make in India story for yourself firsthand.
Yes, it was. I mean, it was really quite incredible. I arrived at 10 o'clock. I found out I didn't have my luggage. By 10:30, they had me in a store that had opened up specifically because for me. They took all my measurements, and by 7 a.m. this morning, I had a suit. I mean, only in India, only in India. It's a nation of problem solving.
Well, problem solving and making in India experience firsthand. Antigone, thanks so much for joining us here on CNBC-TV18. We wish you the very best with the rest of your trip, and we hope you get your bags back as well.
Me
But
too.
good to speak to you, and thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
That's it then on this edition of the Global Dialogue. We'll see you again next week. Till then, from all of us here, goodbye and many thanks for watching.